Okay, good evening, everyone. Torah portion of the week is Parsha. It's a double Parsha. It's a double Torah portion. Parsha Behar, Bechukotai. Behar is the name of the first Parsha. Bechukotai is the name of the second Parsha. Very, very fascinating number of mitzvot that are in this Torah portion. Or I should say double Torah portion. But we're going to focus, I think, on one of them specifically, which is really found at the very beginning of the first of the double portions, which is Parshat Behar. And the main mitzvah that really actually the entire Torah portion.
You're muted, Rabbi.
We can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay, no
There we go.
anymore. And actually, the mitzvah of Shemitah is a very significant mitzvah. It's actually very apropos because next year will be a Shemitah year in the land of Israel. So what's going on here is that, sorry, 1 second. So the Torah has a command, and that God says that farmers in the land of Israel have to do a count. And already the word counting is significant. It's going to parallel the Sfirat HaOmer, the counting that we're doing right now leading up to the holiday of Shavuot next week. And that is at the count of the Omer, the count of the Shemitah, the sabbatical cycle. And the count is 7 years, 7 cycles of 7 years. So 7 times 7 is 49. And on the 50th year is called the Jubilee year. In Hebrew, the Yovel year. The Jubilee year, right? I believe the Jubilee anniversary is a 50th anniversary. So the Jubilee year in the land of Israel is the 50th year following this 49-year count of the Shemitah, which they translate in English as sabbatical. And every 7 years in the land of Israel, the farmers of the land of Israel are commanded to let their land lay fallow. They cannot work their land whatsoever. And their fields are essentially ownerless and free for anyone to take, and especially the poor. The farmer is allowed to, of course, go to his own field to feed himself and his family, but he's not allowed to work it at all. And there's an incredible charity, and they've already started advertising now because the upcoming year will be a sabbatical year in the land of Israel. They still keep it. And now they're collecting money for farmers for next year for the sabbatical cycle. Okay, and the 7th year is called the Shemitah year, and so there's advertisements I've already seen being posted for you to partner with a farmer. I don't know if they give you the name of the farmer or whatnot, but you partner and you help support him throughout the year of the sabbatical cycle where he's not earning a living. He's literally not he's not working his land whatsoever, and that's the first mitzvah. It's 2 mitzvot: sabbatical year and the Yovel year, the Jubilee year. And the Jubilee year is a very fascinating mitzvah. In the Jubilee year, all of the ancestral homes that were sold to another person in the land of Israel returns back to its original ancestral owner. Okay, now this only applied when lands and fields in the land of Israel were owned when the land of Israel was actually apportioned to the various tribes of the Jewish people. In that situation, which obviously we don't have anymore, but in that situation, all lands that were sold revert back to its original ancestral family and owner at the 50th year. As well, all slaves that were owned are set free, no matter what, no matter how, if they're owned in perpetuity no matter what the contract says, no matter even if the slave wants to remain a slave, he must go free he or she must go free in the 50th year. They go back to their families. And the 50th year is called the Yovel year, and it's marked by a shofar blast, and there's a celebration in Jerusalem, and many other things also. There's many other attendant laws that are relevant. But what's really important for us, and I want to just kind of connect it, the title is The Fight to Freedom. What's important for us is what the meaning of the Jubilee year is. I actually spoke about this a little bit on Rosh Hashanah in the shul. and how it parallels the period of time that we're going through now. And the rabbis say in a number of places, and the mystics talk about this also. The mystics. It's fun when the mystics, and none of you are going to question me on what the mystics say, because no one here has learned mysticism. Newsflash, I also have not learned mysticism, but I know that the rabbis say it's in the Talmud, and it is discussed in the mystical sources, that the Shemitah cycle, the 7 times 7, 49-year cycle, which is followed by the Jubilee 50th year, parallels the 49 days that we count from the second day of Passover, to the 50, or really 49 days later, to the 50th day, which is the holiday of Shavuot, which is next week, or it's in a week and a few days. And Shavuot is the commemoration of the Ma'amad Har Sinai, where God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. What else happened at the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai? That the shofar was blown. So already there's there's the number of parallels I already just mentioned. 49 is the main parallel. There are 49 days from the Exodus, when the Jews left Egypt on the second night of Passover, or the Jews left Egypt, and 50 days later, the Jews stand at the mountain and receive God's instruction book for the entire universe, not just for Jews, for non-Jews as well. As well, in the land of Israel, there is a 49-year count followed by a 50th year called the Jubilee year. That's one parallel. The second main parallel is that the shofar was blown at the end of both periods of time. The shofar was blown at the mountain, at Mount Sinai, when the Jews received the Torah. And the shofar was also blown in the 50th year of the Jubilee year. And as soon as the shofar was blown, that's when all the slaves went free, all ancestral homes went back to their original owners. Again, if their land of Israel was apportioned by tribe appropriately, as designated by Joshua, the student of Moses. So every one of these counts is a countdown towards some incredible event. We count from the Exodus until the day we receive the Torah. We count from the first year of the sabbatical until the Jubilee year. And just like the Torah, the book of our instructions, which is given on Shavuot, represents our freedom. And the famous statement and passage in the Talmud by the rabbis is that you should not, when the Torah says that the luchot, the tablets, the 2 tablets that Moses brought down from heaven with the 10 commandments on them, the Torah calls the 10 commandments, as the Hebrew word is charut, chet, resh, vav, taf. And the rabbis make a beautiful expansion of this word. And they say that don't say charut, say cherut. It's the same letters, you just change the vowels in Hebrew. And cherut means freedom. Rather than say the words were charut, were etched on the tablets, you say that the words represent cherut, freedom. In other words, the greatest freedom, the greatest exhilaration and rapture that a person could know is really engaging in Jewish wisdom. And it's totally true. There is nothing like the feeling, and my wife, it's like with my wife and kids, it's like we once in a while we ask, what's your favorite holiday, right? I'm sure you kind of play this game, and everyone knows, my kids and my wife know that my favorite holiday is actually Shavuot. It's not, sometimes you may see me on Purim and may think that Purim is my favorite holiday, and I guess in a certain sense it is, but Shavuot is my favorite holiday because Shavuot, there's no mitzvot on Shavuot. There's literally, Rosh Hashanah has the shofar, Passover has the matzah, Yom Kippur has, just our bodies and fasting. Sukkot is obviously the sukkah with the 4 species. But on Shavuot, there's nothing. There's no mitzvah. I said it was Purim last week? Well, Purim is my favorite holiday in a certain sense, but in a real deep inner sense, I would really say Shavuot is my favorite holiday. And the reason really is because Shavuot is literally you and your connection to the Almighty. There's nothing else. There is nothing else on Shavuot. There's no mitzvot. There's the standard meals that you're supposed to have on Yom Tov, but that's every Yom Tov. That's every holiday. And the beautiful custom that many, many people have, and the Jewish people have really taken on as a national treasure, is the cheesecake, and therefore it's my favorite treasure. I will not comment on certain people in this class right now whom I know do not like cheesecake. I'm very sad for those people, and Hashem should give you a complete and full healing. Amen. May it be soon in our time. Oh, Jen, I wasn't even talking about you. But really, the power of Shavuot is that, very simply, the custom is to stay up. Besides the cheesecake, to stay up, there's a custom that has been around for millennia, to stay up all night, Shavuot night, learning Torah. And this is what we do. And we give classes. And I must say, every year, except maybe, I guess, for this year, sadly, we've had beautiful learning from starting at midnight till we daven. And we daven at sunrise or 5:30 in the morning. And the learning is incredible. And there's something about learning Torah, so learning Jewish wisdom at night when it's quiet all around, which is what King David did, by the way. King David would sleep from, I assume, for maybe a few hours. He would rise at midnight, and then he would learn Torah and sing songs to God throughout the entire night. And then in the morning, he would pray at sunrise. There's something so magical. And by the way, that time, the learning from midnight or from after your meal until the sunrise, it passes by like that. You don't even realize when you're you don't even realize that you're in it, because you're so the feeling is so powerful, so profound. It's incredible. So there's a certain sense of freedom that really is all about Shavuot. Just like there's a certain sense of freedom, there's a real freedom that why start at midnight? That's because by the time you should start as soon as you can, but we start our classes at midnight because people finish their meal by the time they get to the school. To shul. It was just a practical point I was making. So again, the 49-year count leading to the Yovel, the Jubilee year, is freedom for the slaves and for the land owners. They get their land back. The 50th day of Shavuot, after the 49 days of counting, is the freedom of the Torah of Jewish wisdom. So there's so many parallels already. 49 days, 49 years. Shofar at the end of Shavuot, a shofar at the end of the 49-year cycle on the Jubilee year, and the shofar at Mount Sinai, which was blasted to signify, hey, wake up. Now let's just go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to try to explain this as best as I understood it from one of my teachers, and hopefully you'll follow with me. If you don't, just let me know, and I'll try to repeat it, or just too bad. When we talk about a count is a system. What we count from 1 and we count to 49. A sephirah, it's called Sefirat HaOmer, the time that we're living in now. The Sefirat HaOmer is a system that brings everything together within it. It's a single system in which everything and all the days are ordered sequentially, or in another way, but in our case it's sequentially, that connects them. 2 connects to 3, to 4, to 5, to 6. How is 30 connected to 2? It's 28 after 2. And so everything is in a very tight, neat little box. In fact, the word sephirah, which means to count, we may have remember that word from Passover when we say that the main mitzvah, the main command of Passover, well, the main 2 commands are the matzah eating and the sipur yetziat Mitzrayim, sipur, the relating over of the Exodus. So you have Sefirat is the counting of the Omer, and also the Sefirah, the counting was what the 49-year cycle, they had to do. The word Sefirah also means something else in Hebrew. Sapar, same root, same words. And this is, of course, the power of the Hebrew language, that words are all interconnected and it all has overlapping meaning. Vowelization changes the meaning of the word. There's no other language that's like this. But the word sapar in Hebrew means also a border. In other words, a sefirah, a real count, borders and gives parameters and brings everything into a unique, tidy, sequential system, or a system that's ordered by something. It doesn't have to be a sequential count, but usually that's just what happens when you're using numbers. Sefirat HaOmer is a sequential count, day after day after day, in very orderly, very tidy, starting from the second night of Passover and ending by Shavuot. It's sapar, it's bordered. Another Hebrew word This is just incredible. This is the Maharal says this, I believe, the great 13th century sage from Prague, chief rabbi of Prague. His shul is still there. If anyone has ever been to Prague, that's probably stop number 1 or 2 on the Jewish tour. The Altneu Shul, that's the name of his shul. It's still standing, still preserved in beautiful condition. The government now protects it very well. And the Maharal is buried in Prague. But he says that another Hebrew word is sapir. A sapir is also, in the Torah at least, is referring to a gemstone. But sapir, even in modern Hebrew, and we have, Alona, sapir means something transparent. When you're able to see through a sapir, you're able to see through it into what's beyond it. So it's an amazing idea. The Maharal says that the sphira, which gives you a sapar, a border, a parameter, a boxed-in system, ironically, paradoxically, gives you the ability to be a sapir, to see through, to break through, to see something that you thought you cannot become. The boxed-in system with parameters and a sequence and an order actually helps you transcend. It helps you see through. It's an amazing idea. Does everyone understand the power of that statement? You might think, oh, it's a system. It's very nice. It's very clean. It starts at Passover, ends by Shavuot, and that's it, right? But really, that's not what's going on here. That system actually gives you the ability to be a sapir, something transparent, something that you can see through to the other end, limitless potential. There's one exception to this rule, and this is where it gets a little tricky, and I'm going to try my best to explain it. And that is the number 1. Okay, the ani, what in Hebrew is called ani. The ani literally means I. I mean, everyone knows that. Ani, basic Hebrew speakers know ani, I, right? Everyone's favorite phrase in Hebrew. Sean and I was practicing this with you, I think. Ani tzarich hasherutim. I need the bathroom. And as I've said to many people before, don't say ani tzarich hasherut, because for some reason in Israel, in modern Hebrew, a sherut is a taxi van. So if you really need the bathroom and you say ani tzarich hasherut, they'll send you to a car. It doesn't mean that you should go to the bathroom in the car. It's because in Israel, a sherut is actually a taxi car, or really a van. Sherutim is the restroom, or the WC, as they sometimes call it there. And it says on the door, WC. That's for your tongue, for your British influence. Okay? So, ani, literally in the Torah and in modern Hebrew, means I. I as a number 1. The exception to the system is the ani, because nothing comes before the ani. Zero is not a thing. It's not an entity. Ani, number 1 is the very first thing. Nothing precedes it, and yes, 2 follows it, but 2 really starts the system, because something is before 2 and after it, but nothing is before 1. 1 stands almost on its own. That is the exception. Ani, I, number 1, I stand on my own. A person relating to himself or herself always stands alone and nothing can join it. There is no such word in Hebrew as ani in plural. Ani is by definition I, singular, 1. There's no ani. In fact, in Hebrew, if I was trying to say I was talking to you, you cannot say ani medaber la'ani. I was talking to I. You say ani ve'ata, I and you. You understand? The exception to the rule of this neat, tidy box with parameters of a system is the ani, is the number 1, is the I. And this is what the Jewish people, I hope I explained that as well as I can. I'm sorry if that's not so clear, send a message. That is what I understand from the Maharal and from other sources. And this is borne out with what happened at Mount Sinai on Shavuot. When the Jewish people come to the mountain, the Torah has a very interesting expression. And the Torah says, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Hahar. Okay, that's what the Torah says. That he encamped there opposite the mountain. Now, so, which, that's obviously very hard to understand. He encamped there opposite the mountain. It's the entire nation is there. So it should be Vayachanu in Hebrew, which means, and they, in the plural, encamped there opposite the mountain. There's a very famous statement by the rabbis. Why does it say, and he encamped there? And many of you may have heard this. To teach us that the Jews encamped there as if one man as one heart. At that moment in history, probably the only time in Jewish history, before and since, the entire Jewish people were like one body and one soul. They had achieved a level of total integration, total unity. There was no Hasidic, Ashkenaz, Sephardi, black hat, white hat, kippah sruga, right? Black kippah, leather. There was nothing. It was just the Jewish people. The Jewish people had achieved the level of unity to the point where the Torah calls them in the singular for all time. Because they had achieved the level of ani, I, one. Okay? And there is no two, there was no plurality in that oneness. Right? The distance between my ani and your ani and your ani and your ani, between Jason's iPhone's ani and Tanya's ani and Fred Flintstone's ani, is as far apart as from here to Australia. Okay? It's the difference between one embryo in utero and the other. It's two totally different entities. It's a totally different existence. When a person refers to his ani, and this is really talked about at length in many writings of the sages and the Kabbalists, especially the Maharal, again, the great sage from 13th century Prague. When a person refers to their ani, he or she is referring to their essential identity that stands alone. Everything is part of a number other than the ani. Everyone got that? And that's what happened, again, when the Jews received the Torah. When they received the Bible at Mount Sinai, they achieved this level of unification that was unheralded and unparalleled. They transcended the system of sefirah, of counting. They didn't need any counting. They had achieved a level of ani, of one, of oneness. Counting begins at two. There's something before and after two. And then you start a sequential, and then the mispar, the counting, which has a sapar, a border, allows you to rise and grow, and eventually you can be like a sapir and be transparent and see through. But the ultimate level of living is to be the ani. The Jewish people achieved that at Sinai. Okay, we all have that ability to achieve that, but in order to get there, we have to start, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to start with a system. A system helps us get there. By the way, parenthetically, in the Eshet Torah, lingo of my teacher, Rabbi Weinberg, he very much was into this idea of systems. He thought maintaining systems was a very healthy and accelerated way of growth, right? And therefore, you may have heard of the 5 levels of pleasure, right? The 6 constant mitzvot, the 48 ways to wisdom. These are all systems with sequential ordered numbers that have parameters. It's very much appeals to the intelligence, and we like things that are orderly. It speaks to us. But the thing that transcends all of that is still the ani, and that's what the Jewish people did. They transcended that and they reached the singular, right? There's a very well-known movement in the scientific world, the scientific sociological world, called the singularity. Maybe you've heard of it. I don't really understand it so well. I tried reading up on it. I don't think I understood it 100%. It's the main proponent is this guy Raymond Kurzweil, who I think is Jewish. And then the singularity theory of the singularity is that eventually the line between AI, artificial intelligence, and human capability will become so blurred because of our ongoing dependence on AI to achieve our, forget about business, just our daily living. And eventually we'll become so dependent on them that they will start almost creating a form of organic living on their own, So although we will be their masters, but we will become so dependent upon them that the line will be blurred and will become like almost integrated as like a species. Hence the word singularity. It will all become singular. Okay, take the theory as you wish, but that's what I believe. And the theory, it's not a wacko dark web theory. It's a theory that's promulgated by eminent, serious thinkers and scientists. And the truth is that, it doesn't sound so far-fetched. I don't know about in 20 years, but who knows in the future. Now, when we talk about the Ani, another important thing to understand is that Hashem also has his own uniqueness, obviously. And what is the first word of the Ten Commandments? The first word is also I. The Almighty says, I am the Lord your God that took you out of Egypt. That's the first of the Ten Commandments. However, the word that the Almighty uses there is the word Anochi, which is a different word. It means the same thing, really, I, as much as God can be called I. But it's not Ani. Notice that the Almighty does not say Ani Hashem, I am God that took you. He says the word Anochi. And Anochi is the Almighty's uniqueness, his transcendentalism, his oneness that is outside of the numbered system. But his oneness is radically different than any oneness that we can achieve and any oneness that the Jewish people achieved by Sinai. That was an Ani oneness reality. The Almighty's Ani reality, when is defined by the word Anochi. It's a different level. It's something totally different. All people have a reality which connotes a relationship with others, right? We are called by our names and the names of our fathers, or the names of our mothers, depending upon the scenario. You get called up to the Torah, it'll be the name of your father. Your tribal affiliation is your father. For healing, for children, praying for children, for the mother. Relationships result from an expansion of your Ani reality. You cannot be an Ani your whole life. You have to eventually, God willing, you get married, you have children. Your Ani expands, your orbit expands. One who can't say of himself Ani, though, cannot connect to anyone else. You first have to say, I am an Ani. I am one. I am an individual. I am powerful, which is exactly why, what is literally the first line that a Jew says in the morning? And the second word is Modeh Ani Lefanecha. I, the Ani, I. The thing that makes me, my very identity, right? The thing that is not bound by a numbering system, the thing that stands outside of that, give thanks to you, the Almighty. Shechazarta b'nishmati, that you return my soul to me. That I can be whatever I want to be. I can be incredible. I can fulfill my greatest desires. I can come close to you. That is what we're saying when we acknowledge in the morning, Modeh Ani. The power that we want to grasp is the power of Ani. It's to come back to who we really are and what we really want to be. We don't want to be mediocre. We don't want to be stuck in our blank. We don't want to be stuck in the blame game. We don't want to be stuck in the guilt. Guilt is such a terrible, terrible ordeal. I saw such a beautiful video today. I was in tears. There was a video of a young boy, a yeshiva bacher. He looked like he was 20, 21. So he was at Meron, and he saw that one of the young boys was slowly about to be crushed. So he tried clearing a path so that he can shoo him. And I guess, whatever exactly, inadvertently, that actually made the situation worse for the boy. And this boy was crushed and he died. And so this bacher who survived, who tried to help the boy, came to the Shiva house of the father. The father was also under the pile, and the father was pulled out. I talk about that in my weekly video tomorrow. So I don't want to mention that so much now. The father, and he had another son there. The father had 2 boys and a student there with him in Meron. All of them got caught under the pile. The policeman was able to pull out the father and one boy, Shmuel Meir, and the other son and the student of the father, they were crushed to death. So this other yeshiva boy who tried to make a path for the son that didn't survive, and inadvertently probably made things worse for him, came to the Shiva house to the father and to the brother, and he sat down, and there's a video of it online today, and he just starts bawling because he has a survivor's, first of all, he has survivor's guilt, and secondly, he contributed, or it's hard to say he contributed, but he felt like he had contributed to his death. If he wouldn't have done his move, perhaps the boy would still be alive. And the father and the brother is like, "You saved us. Why are you crying? Why are you upset? You saved us. You saved us. Don't feel guilt. That's the Yetzer Hara. That's what the Satan wants you to feel. You saved our lives. You were there. You tried to help. And if you were, because of you, the policeman also came. Don't worry. It was Hashem, the Almighty, decided it was time for them to go, and He took them. If He wasn't in this way, maybe it would have been in a different way. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel guilty." And the whole Shiva visit ends up the father comforting this boy who's there to comfort him. And the boy is like, you can tell he's a mess. He's like just bawling. He can't even talk. He tries to talk, and the father's like holding him. And then at the end, it's so beautiful. It made me like cry. At the end, the father says, "Just promise me that you'll invite us to your wedding, so we can dance at your wedding." And the son like manages to spit out, "Yes, of course." Guilt is not the right thing to do. We have to get in touch with our ani and the ability to be so much more than what we thought we could be. That's what we say every morning, Moda Ani. The shofar that is blown on the Jubilee year, and the shofar that is blown at Mount Sinai, the parallel, after the countdown from 49 to 49, the shofar is the instrument, the blast, right? And on Rosh Hashanah, when you hear the shofar, everyone feels something. Like, you gotta feel something when you hear the shofar. It's like, maybe it lasts a second, maybe 5 seconds, maybe, but you something is activated inside of you. The unique power of the shofar is to awaken your ani, your I-ness, your oneness, your uniqueness, and bring it to the fore, bring it to your consciousness. The law is that at Shemitah, at the sabbatical year, the 7th year of the 7 cycles, every 7 years. So there's a law that a Hebrew slave has to go free by the 7th year. Okay, every 7th year, a Hebrew slave has to go free from his Jewish master. However, there's a famous rule, a famous law, many of you may have heard of it, that if a slave says, "I love my wife and my children and my master, I don't want to go free from the master." Because again, in Judaism, a slave is not a typical slave. The master is enjoined to treat his slave as well as his own wife and children. And so a slave says, "I don't want to go free. This is a great gig. I like it here." So what happens? They place the slave by the doorpost, and they basically drill a hole in his ear, and they make an earring. And the rabbis say, what's the purpose of this? What does it signify? It signifies that the ear that heard the Almighty say at Mount Sinai that you are going to be my servants, and now this slave is being given the opportunity to go free from the human master to serve his godly master, but he chooses to stay with the human master. It's just a reminder to him, your ear, or your ancestor's ear, heard the Almighty say, "You are my servants. You are here. You are going to serve me forever." And you chose the human master. That same ear is now, choosing to ignore that call and stay with the human master. However, the law is that at Yovel, the Jubilee year, even this slave who chooses the human master over God in the 7th year, whether it's the first of the 7th year or the third 7th year in the cycle, at the 50th year he goes free no matter what. He's not allowed to stay anymore. Okay, it is total and complete and utter freedom. This is the parallel. Another parallel. The count of the Sfirat Omer from the second day of Passover till Shavuot, right, is the representative of the freedom of the receiving Jewish wisdom. And the count of the 49 years to the Jubilee is also a total and utter call to freedom. The counting brings us to a place of a sapir, of transparency, that we can see beyond all numbers and all systems. The slave who refuses to go free initially rejects the Exodus and what it's all about, but he must go free. He will have to go free. Okay? The Eved, the slave, therefore has his ear, which refused to heed the call of the Almighty, pierced at the doorpost. Yovel's the same thing. And the shofar is the thing that, the tool that binds those ideas together. Everything goes back to its ani state, to his unique state. We have journeyed toward this destination. We have journeyed from the Passover of the Exodus, and it's one long journey. It's not like there's Passover, and then there's a big break, and hopefully we get some nice weather, and hopefully it stops raining sometime in Toronto. And then we have Shavuot, and then we enjoy our cheesecake. No. It's one journey. Passover to Shavuot is one journey. It's a count. The count is a system. The system includes Passover and Shavuot. But in order to be part of that system, you have to realize it starts first with number one, before two. Number one is ani, and that is outside of the system, though. You are beyond system. Every Jew is powerful and transcendental and transcends all boxes and systems and labels. Once you understand that, then you can join the system. You can join the count, and the count is healthy. The count is a good thing. It's not the ideal. The ideal is just to achieve what the Jewish people achieved on Mount Sinai, the total singularity, to borrow the phrase, total oneness. But that's very difficult, and we need the count. The count brings us confidence, it brings us focus, it brings us direction. Okay, today was day 4. What did I fix today? Today's day 9. What is the focus of today? That's why there are 48 ways to wisdom, 48 ways to acquiring Jewish wisdom. There's 49 days. The last day is the day to review it all. We yearn to reach our ani state, where we started. That's why the 50th day Shavuot, because that's when the Jewish people achieve their singularity. We're yearning, we're counting, we're marching down to Sinai to achieve that singularity. But we can only reach it if we count and orient ourselves properly. And every step in that direction brings us closer to that day when the shofar is sounded and we feel totally and truly and utterly free. And for some, incomprehensible, mind-boggling, astonishing, horrific reason, the Almighty told us that on the 33rd day of the Omer, the most powerful day of the entire count, actually, on the day that our hidden Torah was revealed to us by the great 2nd century Tanaitic sage, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's not 100% clear if he actually died on the 33rd day of the Omer. However, he certainly he revealed. It seems like he revealed the Zohar, which is the precursor of all the Kabbalistic texts, on the 33rd day of the Omer. And on that night, at his tomb, celebrating the revelation of the hidden Torah, which shows how a person can transcend all systems and numbers, the Almighty took these pure and holy ones. And by the way, the more I read, the more I see that these 45 were truly unique. They were really real tzaddikim. They were real righteous people, almost not belonging to this earth. There's a story, it's been verified. I know it's hard to believe, and I'm sure there's many things that have come out that are not so true, but this was verified and verified again. I saw it in 2 different sources. It was verified. A person who was on the bottom of the pile next to one of the victims. Apparently, the victim said before he said the Shema and took his last breath. I mean, that's another thing, by the way. There are many people saying that they heard people saying Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, which is the last word a Jew is supposed to say, and that was their last thing they said, and then they stopped breathing. Many reports, and these people aren't making these things up. But there was a story that a person said on the bottom of the pile, whoever is on top of me, I forgive you with all my heart. Then he said the Shema, and that was the last breath he took. So we're dealing with unnaturally holy people here that the Almighty decides to take for whatever incomprehensible reason. It's part of the march. Are we going to learn from it? Are we going to try to make our ani better? Are we going to try to use the holiday of Shavuot, and even though you can't come, you won't be in shul, or you will go to a class, you won't go to a class? Are you going to just take it as just another 2 days off from work and a lot of cheesecake and a lot of pounds gained? Are we going to try to get back in touch with what makes us transcendental, unique, and holy? In a more contemporary secular example, there's a very interesting series of articles Well, actually, it started. Raquel Levine sent me an article in the National Post. The woman who wrote it, ironically, her name was Samantha Pope. I thought that was pretty ironic and humorous. She wrote an article how we're all feeling perhaps a term that the psychologists and sociologists have coined languishing. Like, we're not depressed, we're not euphoric, we're not grieving as much perhaps anymore, although the Jewish people now are grieving, but we're languishing. That's the word that they're using. We're just getting through days. And it was a very interesting article. I can send it to you afterwards. A few days later in the New York Times, the Adam Grant, who's a very prolific, well-known psychologist, wrote an article about languishing. You know, it actually seemed to me like he actually plagiarized the National Post article. Okay, languishing is being discussed at length with psychiatrists. Yes, that's the term that they're using now. But what's that to me is not very fascinating, because anyone can coin the state of mind nowadays. But what was fascinating to me is that the opposite of languishing that the psychiatrists and the sociologists are saying is the tool is flourishing. Let's flourish together. Personally, cholent makes me flourish, so I don't really like the word, but let's flourish together. Flourishing. And there was two articles in the New York Times. One was about the languishing, and then a follow-up about flourishing, written by someone else, not Adam Grant. The National Post, I don't think, had a follow-up about flourishing. But whatever you read, all three articles, really said the same thing. And it's exactly what I'm telling you right now. Really, Spirit to Omer. I'm paraphrasing, but it really is almost word for word. Do things incrementally within a system and connect to something meaningful beyond you. That's really the solution that they give. I know, mind-blowing, but of course, they're studying it, and they realize that this is really what's getting people to flourish and not just quote unquote languish. So, my friends, we have an opportunity here to we have an opportunity on our hands next week to flourish, to become the ani. We've been counting. The counting helps us be the sapir, to be transparent, to see through the sphira, the count, which ironically puts us in a box, a sequential, ordered, tidy system. And that's what we need. The ideal would be to get to the state of ani, of oneness, which does not have a number before it, like the Jewish people achieved at Mount Sinai. That is our goal. That is our greatest wish. And I'm telling you, and it's not because I'm a sage or a holy Jew or anywhere near the level of the people in Meron. I'm not. But there's something, I'm telling you, deep inside me that I feel on Shavuot night at 2, 3, 4 in the morning when I'm learning Torah that I don't feel any other time of the year, not at the Passover Seder, not on Rosh Hashanah, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just me, but there is something completely pure about that feeling. It's just a feeling of total flourishing. And it's a feeling of I'm connecting back to the source. I'm at the same point in time when my ancestors stood with total unity at the mountain, and I'm connecting to something greater than myself. And this is the most pleasurable 5 hours or so of the entire year. It really is. And so, God willing, in memory of the holy ones who we lost, who achieved unity, and they're achieving so much unity has been wrought by that event. Secular Israelis came together with people that they never would have talked to. I speak about this in my video tomorrow also a little bit. Read some of the stories. They're astonishing. In honor of their unification that they brought in such a terrible way, and in honor of their holiness, let's, God willing, finish this countdown in the right way, focus ourselves to get to the state of ani, of oneness, that they achieved at Sinai 3,300 years ago and change. And so that on Shavuot next week, we can also stand and try and connect to our ani and flourish, in the words of the modern day sociologists. And God willing, we should have a wonderful holiday and a wonderful countdown. And in honor of this learning and our learning in the future, it should be a source of merit for the memory of the holy ones that we lost, and as a memory for Refuah Shlema for those who are still suffering. There was the boy who was shot in the drive-by shooting also the day after, or whenever it was, 2 days after the Meron tragedy. He passed away, and their funeral was today. Young yeshiva boy in a Hezder yeshiva. I watched him at the funeral. That was quite horrific and painful. So we're losing our best and our brightest, and it's definitely a message from the Almighty. It's not a time to play the blame game. That's stupid and silly and a red herring. It's not even relevant. They'll figure out what went wrong, what didn't go wrong, and to say, well, I told you so, that's stupid. It's clearly a message for the people who value Torah wisdom. If the Almighty brought such a horrific event on what is one of the greatest celebratory days of the Jewish calendar in such a horrific manner, it is absolutely a message for us. What the message is for you, I'm not going to tell you. Everyone can figure it out themselves. I'm wary of declaring, well, we have to do this, we have to do that. Oh, it's we have to, I'm not a prophet, and I don't think any rabbis who start saying what you should be and it's this problem and that problem, I'm a little wary of that personally. I mean, we don't have prophecy anymore. Everyone really knows what they have to do that for themselves. Okay. Thank you all for listening. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom, and God willing, we should have a beautiful holiday of Shavuot and get to that place of Ani that transcends, that becomes greater than what we all thought that we can be. And again, our learning and our collective learning and our individual work and the countdown and the Shavuot holiday and all that should be as a merit and source of merit for the families and for the loved ones, for the holy ones that we lost, and indeed for the entire Jewish people. Amen.
Amen.